everybody. Mauricio Pochettino is agreed to take over the U.S. men's national team. What? That is unbelievable. Emergency podcast time. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Tony Meola. We're going to break it all down for you. We're very excited to get into this because it's a reality. We talked about it on the last show that it's a possibility. Now it's the real deal. We're just waiting for U.S. Soccer to confirm, but all the reputable journalists have said it is a done deal. And so Charlie Davies, fresh off of vacation, fresh off of getting some sun, looking good, looking refreshed. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, you couldn't have come back for better news for the U.S. men's national team.
I still have my makeup on from morning footy. I couldn't go down there and clean it off because I'm too excited for this podcast. This is massive. This is massive from U.S. Soccer. So let's give a round of applause for Matt Crocker because he took care of the women and getting Emma Hayes, top manager. It didn't take her too long to win a gold medal and turn that U.S. women's national team back into
just 10 games. 10 games. What a gold medal. We'll play them, Hayes.
The cream of the crop, right? And for the U.S. men's national team, it obviously goes back to that relationship when he was coaching head of the academy at Southampton while Mauricio Pochettino was there. And to have that conversation, that initial conversation, and say, this is what we're trying to do, I think you're a perfect fit. Hear me out. Because it's one thing to say, to get that conversation, to have that phone call. It's another thing to have Mauricio Pochettino say, you know what? This is the right step for me in my career, the right timing, the right moment. This is an incredible signing. Once it happens, I think we're at least he's in the right frame of mind. He wants to do this. This is stellar. Let's go.
Okay, so I want to give a shout out to Todd Bowley, the owner of Chelsea, who just continues to sign. Listen, he something happened with them. Oh, Emma Hayes was ready to go, right? She was at Chelsea. Now she's with the U.S. Women's. And now something happened with Mauricio Pochettino at the end of last season, and Pochettino is now available for us. So Todd Bowley doing the hard work for both programs, for the women or for our national teams. So Tones, this is kind of how I want to phrase it. So or frame it up for everybody that's listening and or watching. Mauricio Pochettino is a coach that I think is a big name, of course, high profile, but any national team would want this guy, or most national teams. 99% of the national teams out there would be like, oh, cool, we got Pochettino as a manager. I think this guy could do a good job. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I guess the 1% is Argentina at the moment.
And Brazil.
Take them. Yeah, Brazil maybe, but look, when we started this whole process, at the end of July beginning of July, when Greg got fired, there were a couple names that were out there, right? That right off the bat, and there was Jurgen Klopp, obviously, and Mauricio Pochettino, and then there was a list of a whole bunch of other guys. And these two names were sort of pipe dreams, right? They were like, if we can talk to these guys, it would be great. And somehow Matt Crocker seems to have pulled this thing off. And you mentioned Todd Bowley. Todd Bowley might be the guy that slows this process down a little bit when it's all said and done, because there's still a lot of things that need to be worked out. But I think it's exciting news. I think about whichever of the important boxes you had as a fan, as a pundit, as whatever that needed to be checked. Big name, experience with big players, experience at the highest level, experience at the international level, which I think I told you first podcast was not much of a box for me. That was the one that didn't mean a lot to me. And wherever you were at, he checks off just about every single box. And I couldn't be any more excited to see him come here and hopefully turn this thing in the right direction.
Jimmy, this question's for you now.
Oh, I can't wait.
Because I got it. We got to throw this at you. All right. We finally get a name. We finally get a manager who has a proven track record in competing for trophies. Maybe not necessarily winning trophies, but getting to finals and get second place in the Premier League, right? This is a top manager. Has done it with some of the best players in the world, has done it with players who are just getting their feet wet in the professional game. He's developed players. Okay. Yeah. What is he going to change in your mind in his first couple of appearances with the U.S. men's national team? What are you expecting him to do when he comes into the locker room? He's got his first camp, and then that first starting 11. What are you expecting? What do you think we're going to see?
Okay, so I got three things for you, Chuck. Okay, One, he's Argentine. And apparently, if you have an Argentinian manager, you have a really good chance of having some success. That's great. Second, the guy played center back for 17 years as a player, professional player. And I got plenty of time for him. I got plenty of time for him. And third, I think what's the most important thing, yes, he ticks a lot of boxes, as Tony says, and his experience and being able to manage different types of locker rooms. I look at that PSG locker room in particular, where he's got to figure out how to make everybody happy amongst Leo Messi and Neymar and Kylian Mbappe in particular, and trying to make that harmonious, right? And I think that's a different type of challenge than potentially our group of players who don't have the same type of pedigree as players, and maybe the egos aren't as big. So he's kind of seen the game at all different levels. But my number one thing that I absolutely love is that these players needed to hear a different voice. And that's going to be helpful. And when you add to the fact that it's a manager that has this type of track record, and in some ways we could argue with some of his stints as coach, he's punched above his weight. I mean, he did really, really well with that Tottenham team. And he got the most out of that Tottenham team. And certain players in particular, like Dele Alli, that guy has fallen off a cliff since Pochettino hasn't been his coach anymore. But under him, he was
Harry Winks.
Harry Winks. I mean, I actually went back and looked at that 2018-2019 Tottenham team that made it to the Champions League final. And you're like, wow, how did he manifest that to make sure that those guys could get into it? We're looking at it right now. You got Danny Rose playing left back. You got to a Champions League final with Danny Rose at left back. Vertonghen, Alderweireld.
Hey, put some respect on that name.
Okay, fine. Danny Rose. when he was on his game, he was excellent. Harry Winks, Sissoko, and then you got Son and obviously Harry Kane up top. So there's things that I like about what he's accomplished collectively, but then when I think about what he can bring to individual players, that makes me excited as well. My big concern, I would say, and I guess we're going to do a few red flags here, and Tones, I want to hear from you on this too, is that I don't know if he's going to have enough time, because it's a national team job, to implement the style that we all know that he's capable of and has demonstrated at multiple clubs throughout his career. Tones, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know the time thing is that much of a difference, right? Makes a big difference, right? He knows he's getting into a national team job. So whoever took over this national team job was going to have the same time as Mauricio Pochettino. So I'd rather have a better manager who has a better skill set, who has seemingly
great point.
Seemingly a better relationship, it looks like, with his players, and knows how to manifest those relationships at the job now. And I think we got the right job. But again, whoever took over was going to have all the same obstacles: timing leading into the World Cup, the roster, who's playing, who's not playing. They all had the same challenges. So we at least got a guy that we think is competent in all of those areas, which would get us to the end point that we want to be quicker than most other guys. And that's kind of how I would answer that question, the way you put it.
Okay, and then, Chuck, to kind of follow up on what Tone says and to answer your question in another way, I think he's going to demand respect right when he comes in. Like, if you're one of the guys, you're like, oh, shit, Mauricio Pochettino's here. It's
different.
It's different. It's different. It's different.
This is different.
And so you listen different. And that's, I think, to it that when you tick all those boxes, as Tone has mentioned, you can walk in there with some gravitas that maybe another manager would lack, who maybe didn't have the same type of experience. So here's a question for you, Chuck. Are you worried? And I guess are you worried that Pochettino could potentially be tempted by other offers? And I guess that's a bigger question, club offers in the middle of this run. But I'm curious about the details, because if I'm Mauricio Pochettino, I just had I'm working with Chelsea for a year. Sounds like it would age you about 10 years at this point. And I wonder if it was just the right time for him to come in and be like, hey, I just want to slow things down a little bit. And then after 2026, after however it goes with the US, then I can jump back into the club scene. I'm kind of curious about the details of this contract. I don't know if you have any of those. Probably not, because we're all speculating.
Well, it's not even signed. It's not even signed. They're still working through the contract.
That's true. I'm handing you the baton. Take it from there.
What I will say is I think he's committed up until the World Cup, because let's be realistic. If a big club comes for him, it's because they decided to sack their current manager that they have. And typically you're not going to get the deal that you would have had. You know, you had a fresh start in the summer where you're coming in, you have a full preseason, maybe similar to how he came into the Chelsea situation. He waited until the season ended, essentially. And then, he had some time to kind of assess who he wanted to keep, which direction he wanted to go in. And then he was able to come into a fresh team with a preseason and start all over. I think it'll be the same thing where he takes his time with this group. He has a huge potential and upside to kind of bring U.S. glory for the first time in a World Cup, like as far as they've ever been. And then he can set sail and end up in a good situation in a summer where he has a full preseason to go to a big club. So I'm not worried about him leaving. If he mentally says, this is what I want to do, this is the right time in my career, then I think he will see it through. I feel like he's just one of those honorable guys, unless there was like just an absolute crazy situation where the contract comes, which I don't foresee.
Yeah.
I think he's in this for the long run, up into the World Cup.
Okay. And then Tones. Now, before we've hired Mauricio Pochettino, Matt Crocker said after firing Greg Berhalter that they're looking for a serial winner. And I know that Chuck touched upon it a little bit earlier that, okay, maybe he doesn't win all the time, but he's demonstrated that he can challenge for trophies. But Matt Crocker said we're looking for a serial winner. And we could argue that Pochettino isn't a serial winner. The only trophies that he has are with PSG, which I think Chuck can manage PSG and win trophies. Chuck just took a stray, by the way. So does that concern you that he doesn't tick that box, Tones?
How dare him get to the finals of Champions League with that team that you laid out there before on the screen?
Exactly.
No, it doesn't. So he hasn't won a trophy, a title. If he had Pep Guardiola's team for the last couple of years, would he have lost the title? I don't know. For me, that's not a concern. We'd love for him to get us to a finals of a World Cup. Would we be happy with just that, getting to a finals of a World Cup? I mean, think about the statement in general. Again, I go back to there were two guys on the list at the beginning of this process, which seems like 6 or 7 weeks ago now, that we said, yeah, let's go look at them and let's try and get them. But we need to have this other list over here because we're probably not going to get those two guys. We're probably not going to get Jurgen Klopp, and we're probably not going to get Mauricio Pochettino. Those are two guys that, yeah, they're pie in the sky. Well, guess what? We just got one, right? And we need to embrace it. I'm sure they'll get this contract worked out. I'm sure he understands that this is pretty much a 2-year commitment, right? And he's going to be here for 2 years. I'm sure he understands he's going to be the coach of the host team in a World Cup, which is massive. He will. It's not as if the world of football doesn't know him already and doesn't know his work. He'll be even more well known for doing the job that he does here. So I'm struggling, Jimmy, to find a box that he doesn't tick for me. I love
that. I love that.
I want to throw in terms of the serial winner, because it's all subjective. What do you mean by serial winner? Are you talking trophies? Are you talking about just winning matches? Because in that 2016-17 season where he took Tottenham to second place behind Chelsea, just 6 points from the top, he had 26 wins, 8 draws, 4 losses, 86 goals scored, and 26 conceded. So he actually had a fantastic season. When you say winning, that to me is consistency. That's winning. The following season, 3rd place, 23 wins, 8 draws, 7 losses. And then the following season, he took 4th, but he has still had 23 wins.
All 4 of his seasons at Tottenham, he was top 4.
Just winning games.
Yeah.
He's winning games consistently at the highest level. We've never had that.
That's what we want.
This is the first time the U.S. men's national team has ever had a manager who's managed in league play. Not Jurgen Klinsmann took 3rd at the World Cup, and that's phenomenal with Germany. But in terms of a Premier League season, a top 5 league season, consistency, winning games, this is the first time the U.S. men's national team has had a manager of this stature.
Yeah, don't trigger me. Don't trigger me with Jurgen Klinsmann. I will not. I can't.
Don't trigger me in the comments with Irv Renard. If I see that name any more Renards, I'm gonna break this. I'm gonna break this computer. I'll break all this thing.
It took him for 2.
Let's
all right.